Special forces are like the secret agents of the military, handpicked from the best, trained to do things most people could only dream of and equipped with the coolest gear to take on the most dangerous missions. Think of them as the ultimate problem solvers. Every country's military has its own special forces teams, and each one has unique jobs, whether it's sneaking behind enemy lines, gathering secret information, or rescuing hostages in the middle of nowhere. While special forces have technically been around for as long as wars have existed, the kind we think of today really became famous during World War II. That's when these elite soldiers stepped into the spotlight, proving that with the right training and mindset, they could do what seemed impossible. Whether it was daring raids, sabotage missions, or undercover operations, these forces showed that they were a game changer. After the war, everyone realized just how effective these units were, and soon almost every country decided they needed their own version of special forces. It's like a global superhero squad was forming, with each nation bringing its own special talents to the table. In this video, we're going to dive into some of the coolest German, British, and American special forces from World War II and the amazing things they did. Germany's special forces, Brandenburgers and SS Jäger 502. During World War II, the Germans had quite a few special forces units, but let's focus on just two: the Brandenburgers and SS Jäger Battalion 502. These units were inspired by the brutal but effective Freikorps Ebbinghaus, which made a name for itself during the invasion of Poland. The idea was to create a German unit that specialized in sabotage and sneaky infiltration, perfect for the war that Hitler had just kicked off. By January 1940, many of the Freikorps members were given a new name, Baller Kompanie 800, but they became much better known as the Brandenburgers. In the early days, they mostly recruited Germans who could speak foreign languages fluently, which made it easier for them to blend in behind enemy lines. But their training went way beyond what regular soldiers did. They learned everything from recon and hand-to-hand combat to using both German and enemy weapons, swimming, and much more. When it came to actual missions, the Brandenburgers' job was all about sabotage and infiltration. But one mission in August 1942 really shows what the Brandenburgers were all about. Led by Brandenburger officer Adrian von Fulkersum, the unit disguised themselves as Soviet NKVD agents and drove right through Soviet lines in Soviet trucks. On their way to capture the Maykop oil fields, they even ran into a group of Soviet soldiers retreating from the front. Instead of panicking, they convinced the Soviets to head back into the fight and tagged along with them, which let them move freely deep into Soviet territory without getting caught. German Special Forces unit, the SS Jäger Battalion 502. This unit was filled with volunteers from the Luftwaffe, Heer, and Waffen SS and was considered a bit of a rival to the Brandenburgers. While the 502nd had many missions, one of their most famous was the Grand Sasso Raid in September 1943. This daring rescue mission involved breaking Benito Mussolini out of his mountaintop prison, Hotel Campo Imperatore. 16 men from the 502nd teamed up with the 2nd Fallschirmjäger Division, another special force, and swooped down on the hotel using gliders. They stormed the place with about 100 men, easily outnumbering the guards, who were caught so off guard that the entire raid was pulled off without a single shot fired. In just 10 minutes, they freed the bald fascist himself, Mussolini. Thanks to this bold rescue, Skorzenny was promoted and became even more famous. British Commandos, Churchill's fearless raiders. The British Commandos might not have invented special forces, but they certainly made a name for themselves. Formed as the Special Service Brigade at Churchill's request, they were designed to be a small, elite force for raiding German-occupied Europe. Volunteers faced intense training that tested both their physical and mental toughness. They tackled everything from mountain hikes and river crossings to hand-to-hand combat, marksmanship, and even ziplining. Equipped with lighter weapons like the Sten & Thompson submachine guns, silenced pistols, and the iconic Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife, the Commandos were a force to be reckoned with. They fought in every theater of the war, disrupting Axis operations and paving the way for Allied advances. Their mission, known as Chariot, is often called the greatest raid of all time. In March 1942, they took an old U.S. Navy destroyer, rammed it into the German-held dry dock. Nazaire and detonated explosives that rendered the dock useless until 1948. During the chaos, 611 commandos destroyed infrastructure, took out 360 Germans, and suffered 385 casualties themselves. SAS, the masters of stealth and speed. The success of the Commandos inspired the creation of the Special Air Service, founded in 1941 by the legendary Sir Archibald David Stirling. The SAS was all about reconnaissance, sabotage, and quick raids. Initially focused on the North African campaign, they quickly expanded their operations throughout Europe. One of their standout missions was Operation Archway, where two SAS squadrons supported the WWII Airborne Corps during a parachute landing across the Rhine River. They crossed the river in amphibious vehicles and sped off in jeeps, using their agility to support armored units. In a remarkable operation, the 1st SAS Squadron helped liberate around 60,000 prisoners from the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp and hunted down fleeing Nazis, showcasing their daring spirit and tactical prowess. Marine Raiders, America's first amphibious warriors. Inspired by the British use of special forces, the U.S. formed several special units during World War II with mixed results. One of these was the Marine Raiders, which aimed to be America's answer to the British Commandos. Activated in February 1942, the 1st and 2nd Raider battalions were set up for amphibious raids on Japanese-held islands. These elite Marines recruited only the best volunteers and were equipped with top-notch gear. They received special training in rubber boat landings and guerrilla warfare. However, they often found themselves fighting alongside standard Marines, leading to some tension and their eventual phase-out by early 1944. The Raiders did have a major victory in the Battle of Edson's Ridge at Guadalcanal in September 1942, where they successfully defended against a 6,000-man Japanese assault despite being outnumbered. However, their raid on Macon Island in August 1942, a mission meant for sabotage and intel gathering, turned into a costly disaster. They used inflatable boats to land on the island, but ended up killing most of the prisoners they intended to capture and losing some of their own men during a chaotic evacuation. 1st Special Service Force, the Devil's Brigade. On the other hand, the 1st Special Service Force was a unique unit formed by both American and Canadian soldiers, specifically trained to operate behind enemy lines in tough winter conditions and mountainous terrain. The idea came from Geoffrey Pike, who envisioned a force that could take out strategic targets in German-occupied Norway. While that plan didn't pan out, the 1st went on to prove their worth in other locations. Trained in demolitions, parachuting, rock climbing, and skiing, they were ready for anything. Equipped with winter gear and special rations, they played crucial roles in battles in Italy and France. During the Battle of Anzio, they replaced decimated Ranger battalions and showed their skills in the challenging battles of Monte la Defensa and Monte la Remetania. These mountains were heavily fortified by the Germans, but the 1st Special Service Force was anything but conventional. They scaled treacherous peaks and fought through freezing rain to secure a position above the German stronghold. After a fierce 2-hour battle, they forced the enemy to retreat, allowing the Allies to capture La Rementania shortly after. For their daring exploits, they earned the nickname the Devil's Brigade. In the end, it's tough to compare these special forces and declare a winner from World War II, as each unit had its own unique strengths and specialties. The British were pioneers, using special forces early in the war, giving them an edge in experience. Meanwhile, the Germans were already utilizing special forces tactics before the war even began, and their impressive feats, even on the losing side, deserve respect. The Marine Raiders, while they had their share of challenges, showed that not every unit needs to fit a specific mold to be effective. They were tough soldiers, even if they weren't perfectly specialized. But what do you think? Are any of the special forces we covered today clearly better or worse than the others? And what about the units we did mention? There were plenty of other nations with their own unique forces. Would you like to see a second or even third part to this video? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.